Hello everybody. So I figured inspired to pick up the camera and read a little bit of A Course in Miracles. I have yet to do this for a while, as I've simply just been letting Spirit speak through me. So I figured that I would open it up and see what came in store for us. And so the lesson that ended up being opened was lesson 96. Salvation comes from my one self. And so I figured I'd give this entire lesson and this entire time that we are together here to the Spirit within my mind, which is ultimately the Spirit in yours, so that we may feel the presence of peace together and absolute inspiration to continue to do work within our own mind, to open and accept the truth about ourselves in this world, so we may give the gifts that this world needs that come through us in our acceptance. So, lesson 96, we can all read this together if you have a course book, and if not, I will read it out loud and you can follow along with me. Salvation comes from my one self. Although you are one self, you experience yourself as two, as both good and evil, loving and hating, mind and body. This sense of being, split into opposites, induces feelings of acute and constant conflict, and leads to frantic attempts to reconcile the contradictory aspects of this self-perception. You have sought many such solutions, and none of them have worked. The opposites you see in you will never be compatible, but one exists. Now, as I pause here for a moment, this is in alignment with everything that I've been sharing lately and continually. The absolute importance of choosing who we are in truth and no longer accepting the dual part of ourselves. Because the other side of us that we perceive to be there, the mind of hating, the mind of evil, the body, is really the part that we've imagined, right? It's the hallucination that we have all agreed to experience, but it's not our reality. And therefore, we will continue to go to try and heal and see all these counselors and see all these psychics and do all these readings and get all these answers through all of these ways in which the world has given us to try and help ourselves and get rid of the conflict and the suffering and the pain. And yet all that is doing is keeping the healing outside of ourselves, instead of recognizing that the true healing is in accepting who we really are in its wholeness. And until we accept it in its wholeness, we know not who we are, so we cannot pretend that we do. And the reason we experience conflict is because we believe ourselves to be in conflict. There's another part in the Course where it says the only thing that we are sure of is who we are. And so when we're in confusion about who we are, or think that we know and yet still experience confusion and chaos and suffering and all of this, is because we haven't accepted who we are. It's because we don't know who we are. But as souls, we know. And therefore we must be unwilling to continue to believe that we know what we are, and instead become open to learning what we are from within us, so that we can drop that split self and embrace the wholeness, right? So yeah. The fact that truth and illusion cannot be reconciled no matter how you try, what means you use, and where you see the problem, must be accepted if you would be saved. So again, truth and illusion cannot come together. We are learning that we can bring illusions to truth, right? But we can't bring truth to illusions, right? And the illusion is basically the perceived thought that we are anything but a child of God, that we are anything but a soul. And we're trying to bring all three parts together and be this one tight unit to live within this world, so that we can just accept what is, instead of embracing the true reality of what is, which is realizing that we can't suffer, we can't experience pain, we can't experience sadness or loss or lack of any kind, Because when we've embraced ourselves as who we are as children of God, we realize that any of those things are impossible. That those things that cause the suffering and pain are coming from a misperception of who we think we are. Identification with the body, identification with this world, identification with the laws of this world, and believing that we must abide by what is going on outside of us instead of the laws that are given us by God within us, right? It's just like a bird. A bird will go and it'll fly and it'll do everything that it needs to do because a bird knows it's a bird. Right? A bird knows it's a bird. It doesn't think that it's anything else other than what it is, and therefore it does what it's supposed to do. And it's the same thing for us. Once we accept who we are, this one self and nothing else, is when we naturally flow with the waves of life. Just like a bird will naturally do what it needs to do, we naturally do what we need to do. So we get out of the mind, and instead of thinking that we know, and we trust the heart, the presence, the peace that lies within us, which is the guiding light and the guiding force that we are learning to follow in this world, right? And so 99% of the world is caught up in believing that they are this split person, right? And that's why, we can't receive that much help through, mental health and psychotherapy and people who are trying to help, because they have yet to heal their own minds and choose only their wholeness instead of their split self, right? Because ultimately we are no help to anybody else if we haven't healed ourselves, right? And it is only in the recognition that we know nothing is when we can learn together in those instances instead of thinking that we know. Right? It doesn't matter how much schooling we've had, we're still being taught by the ego that thinks it knows in this world, which is not helpful by anybody. Right? Because ultimately, like, a miracle is an undoing. It doesn't really do anything. It undoes, right? So it literally undoes the errors in mind. It undoes the folly misperceptions that we've believed to be true throughout this life in which we've been conditioned, right? But the miracle does nothing. It just, allows us to recognize the truth that is already within us, and choose only truth, not both, not truth and illusions, because illusions are illusions, which means that they're not real and they do not exist, right? That's why we're learning what truth is from within us and together, right? Until you have accepted this, you will attempt endless lists of goals you cannot reach, a senseless series of expenditures of time and effort, hopefulness and doubt. Each one is futile as the one before, and failing as the next one surely will. Right? So we'll continue to set goals with our practices. We'll continue to set goals in regards to the body and how healthy we're going to be and how much healthy food we're going to eat and how we're going to try and save all these things in the world and do all these things. These are still all goals that are outside of ourselves that make ourselves believe that, we need to actually do something. Right? Once we heal within the own mind and recognize that everything that is outside of us is a reflection of the self that believes that it is separate, that believes in pain, that believes in death and misery, is when we can banish it in our own mind, and then it leaves out there. And now instead of trying to fix, the illusion, right? Instead we bring the truth into this world, which is the light, right? Which all those who are seeking the light will come to, right? Because then we can bring the gifts that will truly, 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 truly heal into this world through our one mind instead of our split mind, right? Because if we're bringing it forward in our split mind, we probably still have our own reasons for it. We want other people to think that we're doing good. We want other people to like us. We want to make more money. We want to be profitable. We want to ensure that we support ourselves and support everything around us, right? We're still having our own goals, right? But it's even stating right here, if we'll have this endless list of goals that we will never be able to reach, right? Because it's still for our own reasons, the small little I, right? And the small little I is the identification with the littleness within the body. But this body in itself is the mirage of reality. It is the hallucination. It is not who we really are. It is the vessel that we've been given in this world to communicate, right? But all we really are is communicators, right? And therefore we're learning to listen to that one voice through that one mind that we share to communicate the truth to all so that we can receive the gifts from our Creator and bring it here through us, right? But not to stand in the way of it. Our only thing is to stand out of the way. We need to stand out of the way and just let it stream through, right? Problems that have no meaning cannot be resolved within the framework they are set. That's kind of like what Einstein says, right? you know, um, um, no problem can be solved with the same consciousness that created it, right? So if we created a problem, the problem obviously comes from the mind of separation. So if we're trying to heal it in the mind of separation, it's never going to work, right? And so problems that have no meaning cannot be resolved within the framework they are set. Two selves in conflict could not be resolved. And good and evil have no meeting place. They cannot come together. They are absolute opposites. One is real, one is not, right? It's impossible. The self you made can never be yourself, nor can yourself be split in two and still be what it is and must forever be, right? So basically, in essence, we are who we are in reality, and that never changes. We are children of God and souls for all of eternity, and just because we are here in form, experiencing a moment in time where we are a body, does not mean we are a body. And there's no way that we can be a body and a soul, because that's impossible. We can't be a split self. We are a whole self, right? So either we choose body or soul, not both. And when we choose ourselves as a soul, the soul works through the body to heal it and tell it what it's supposed to eat and what it should do and where we should go and all of these things. But we need to reverse that order. So no longer are we accepting the both, we're accepting one. And from that wholeness of the one, it shines down upon everything else. A mind and body cannot both exist. Make no attempt to reconcile the two, for one denies the other can be real. If you are physical, your mind is gone from your self-concept, for it has no place in which it could be really part of you. If you are spirit, then the body must be meaningless to your reality, right? And this is ultimately what the Course teaches, right? That, nothing real is threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God, right? And therefore we are learning to see that this body is nothingness. We can call it beautiful, and we can call it ugly. Those are judgments. We can call it healthy, we can call it not healthy. Those are judgments, right? We are learning to banish our own judgments so we can see it as it really is. And as we choose to see it as it really is, we are shown through the eyes of spirit and recognize that this body is nothingness. It's a compilation of cells and atoms and energy, which is made into a dense form because of our belief that it is so. It is a belief. It's not a reality. The truth is in our mind. Our mind is the power, right? Our mind is the creative force that the soul works through in order to materialize the body, but the body is nothingness. If we give the body power over anything else, then we are forgetting where our true power is, right? And that's why we must just choose one, not two. Just one, not two, right? Spirit makes use of mind as means to find its self-expression. And the mind which serves the spirit is at peace and filled with joy. Its power comes from spirit, and it is fulfilling happily its function here. Yet mind can also see itself divorced from spirit, and perceive itself within a body it confuses with itself. Without its function, then, it has no peace, and happiness is alien to its thoughts, right? And so it's stating right here, right? When spirit, our soul, makes use of our mind as its self-expression, is when we feel at peace and filled with joy, because we know who we are as spirit. But if we're believing that we are this body, right, then this body we are identifying with nothingness, and therefore the thoughts of happiness and true peace are impossible. We may experience them sometimes, but then they're fleeting. We may have really, really happy days, but then we feel like crap the next because, there's some projections from this outside world that, we can't handle. We really get lost in the dream world, believing that we are this character that we're playing, believing that we are this personality that we've created, believing that we are this body that we see with our physical eyes. And yet what we're learning together when we remember that we are soul is that we can see beyond the form, beyond the body, to the truth and the light of that which we are. right? So it's when we start to no longer judge the body or look at the body or believe that this body and this world is our reality, is when we can let go of our own judgments of it, and from within, from our soul, we are told what it really is. And then that is, the atonement at one man, accepting this one self instead of the split part, right? And this is a lot to hear if one's not ready for it and one's not willing to learn that this is true, because then they're believing that it's a personal attack on the self, right? Because they believe that they are this body. They believe that they live in this world. They believe that this is their reality and what's going on. And so to hear that we are a spirit and that this body is nothing and whatever's going on in this world is not reality and doesn't even matter, is a big, huge blow to the ego, of course, right? But it's also just a flick to collapse all those cards, because in truth, our soul, the spirit that is within us, knows this truth. And if we even have the slight bit of willingness to know it and remember it for ourselves, we will be guided and we will be shown to have these experiences that prove to us that this is reality and that this is truth, right? But if we are just automatically denying it and put the block up and say, no, I don't believe this at all, hands up in the air, it can't possibly be true, Brittany's crazy, well, then that's your belief and that's your perception, and you'll keep on living this split life in this split mind, believing you're a 2-part or 3-part person, and continuing to experience suffering and fear of death and fear of lack and fear of everything, right? So it's ultimately a choice. We can do whatever we choose. I know what I've chosen for myself, and from this choosing, I've been able to experience the miracles, the gloriousness of the perfection of peace that God has given us freely already, and all I know is what I've received and what I continue to give to the world in peace and joy, right? And so we all can join in this truth, because truth is all there is, or we can choose to accept illusions for ourselves and continue to just, distract, ultimately, right? Time is just for learning, nothing else, right? Yet mind, apart from spirit, cannot think. It has denied its source of strength and sees itself as helpless, limited, and weak. Disassociated from its function now, it thinks it is alone and separate, attacked by armies massed against itself and hiding in the body's frail support. Now must it reconcile unlike with like, for this is what it thinks that it is for, right? So when we have lost connection with our soul, with our spirit, then we are lost. Like most of this world, like I get to watch within my family, like I've seen many times before when people come to me, right? They're hiding in this frail body and they're trying to look outside of themselves for the answers, and then they realize that the answers aren't outside of themselves, and it freaks them out even more because they don't know where they're going to get the answers, because they don't know who they are, and they have failed to realize that the answers are already inside themselves, right? And so you get caught up in this whole hamster wheel where you just spin around and around and around, and you start just focusing on your own judgments of good and bad in this world, of likes and unlikes in this world, and you basically just get caught with an illusion of your own mistaken perception. It's contorted. No wonder people haven't been able to get out of it, right? Because they've been inundated with guilt and fear that keeps them locked in that mind that's produced this guilt and fear, because they believe themselves to be this body. So it extends from a misperception of I. Who am I? That question is not unknown. That question is all that there is, right? And so we must be open to learning the truth of the answer to that question, what am I? And upon receiving the answer to that question is when we're no longer confused or uncertain or unsure or fearful at all. It says, waste no more time on this. Who can resolve the senseless conflicts which a dream presents? Exactly. What could the resolution mean in truth? What purpose could it serve? What is it for? Salvation cannot make illusions real and solve a problem that does not exist. Perhaps you hope it can. Yet would you have God's plan for the release of his dear Son bring pain to him and fail to set him free? Basically what it's saying here is when we look to the world and believe that illusions are real, well then there's no correction for it. But it is only when we recognize that what we are seeing and experiencing is not real, and therefore it is a folly misperception that indeed deserves correction, as when we can receive that miracle to remind us that we are already forgiven and that nothing has happened and all the illusions just fall away, because that's all that they are, is illusions. But when we're holding steadfast on the illusions, why me? Why is this happening? Why do I feel like crap? Why am I not having enough money? Why is all this stuff happening in my family? Da 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 da. And believing that it actually has some power, then we are keeping ourselves locked in the mind that is perceiving the illusions as their reality. So it's when we recognize that I know not what anything is, I know not what anything means, I know not what healing is or where it comes from, but I know that there's a part within me that knows. So I'm willing to see everything in its truest light, is when we are actually open to receive the miracle and the true correction and the true release from the folly misperceptions of mind. Right? But it's only when we recognize that, what we are seeing isn't really a problem at all, that we can actually embrace the problem. And that's a big step for most people. Your self retains its thoughts, and they remain within your mind and in the mind of God. The Holy Spirit holds salvation in your mind and offers it the way to peace. Salvation is a thought you share with God because His voice accepted it for you and answered in your name that it was done. Thus is salvation kept among the thoughts yourself holds dear and cherishes for you. So basically this is saying that salvation is already done. All we need to do is remember and accept it for ourselves, period. Seriously, this is the simplicity of salvation here. Right? But the reason it seems more difficult is because we are believing in the thoughts that we have created and have accepted from the world around us and from our own conditioning, and those themselves are the blocks to this one thought that has been accepted by the Spirit in our mind that joins us with God, our brothers and sisters, and our true authentic self. Right? So that's why miracles undo and let go of the thoughts in our mind to clear away all the junk so that we are an open vessel to hear the deep thoughts that we've already accepted in truth that can be relayed back to us, so that we remember, oh yeah, this is a dream. We're dreaming a dream of separation and illusion. It doesn't even matter what goes on here because it is a dream. Just like a child is having a nightmare at nighttime. He wakes up crying, right? As soon as they wake up, you realize that the nightmare was just a nightmare and it didn't even happen and it doesn't even matter. And therefore you can never get mad or upset at a child who had a nightmare because it was just a dream. It did not exist. But you don't know that you're having that nightmare until you wake up from it. It's the same thing here. We're dreaming a dream, and we don't know we're dreaming until we awaken from it, or until we hear the possibility of that is true, hold on to that willingness so that we're shown it ourselves. Right? It says, we will attempt today to find this thought, the thought that Spirit has already accepted for us on behalf of our soul, God, and in the entire peace of this universe and all of our brothers and sisters. So we will attempt today to find this thought, whose presence in your mind is guaranteed by Him who speaks to you from your one self. Our hourly 5-minute practicing will be a search of Him within your mind. Salvation comes from this one self through Him who is the bridge between your mind and it. Right? So literally all it takes is a settling into stillness and willingness to turn within, and Holy Spirit is in our mind to guide us to this thought, to remind us of this thought, to illuminate this thought within our mind so we see it, feel it, and experience it from within us. Right? It's already there. It's already there. We just have to be willing to hear it and to experience it for ourselves. And this is the bridge that crosses us over to the unified consciousness, right? That crosses us over to Christ consciousness, right? That's why the answer is already within. We just need to clear out the junk before we get there. And this is saying we're ready now, right? Enter into the stillness and quietness and listen for this thought that is already there. Wait patiently and let Him speak to you about yourself and what your mind can do, restored to it and free to serve its will. Begin by saying this. Here's our little prayer for today. Salvation comes from my one self. Its thoughts are mine to use. Right? So either we're choosing our thoughts of salvation and truth and peace and unity, or we're believing the thoughts that ego has made, that we've been conditioned to think, that we've been conditioned to believe, that are wrapped up with nice words and spirituality and bows of, prettiness or ugliness. It can go both ways, but it's not both minds. It says, then seek its thoughts and claim them as your own. These are your own real thoughts you have denied, and let your mind go wandering in a world of dreams to find illusions in their place. Here are your thoughts, the only ones you have. Salvation is among them. Find them there. As we find salvation in ourselves, the world finds salvation. This is why we must heal our minds first before the world can be healed. But it is also a recognition that this healing does not come from us, but within us. So all we have to do is give the willingness and the time to go within, and it will be revealed to us there. These are your own real thoughts you have denied, and let your mind go wandering in the world of dreams. I already read this, but I'm reading it again apparently. To find illusions in their place. Here are your thoughts, the only ones you have. Salvation is among them. Find it there. If you succeed, the thoughts that come to you will tell you you are saved, and that your mind has found the function that it sought to lose. Yourself will welcome it and give it peace. Restored in strength, it will again flow out from spirit to the spirit in all things created by spirit as itself. Your mind will bless all things. Confusion done. You are restored, for you have found yourself. Yourself knows that you cannot fail today. Perhaps your mind remains uncertain yet a little while. Be not dismayed by this. The joy yourself experiences, it will save for you, and it will yet be yours in full awareness. Every time you spend 5 minutes of the hour seeking Him who joins your mind and self, you offer Him another treasure to be kept for you. Each time today you tell your frantic mind salvation comes from your one self, you lay another treasure in your growing store, and all of it is given everyone who asks for it and will accept the gift. Think then how much is given unto you to give this day, that it be given you. And that's the glory of all of this. That salvation and world peace and saving of this world is already done. And yet our distracted mind will keep us believing there's so many things that we have to do. And yet we only have to do our part, right? And our part is given from within us from our one self. And that one self's only purpose is to remind us of who we are and to restore us to the natural state of peace and perfection as we were created. And therefore, as we no longer let our distracted mind tell us that our healing and our acceptance of salvation is so far off in the future because we have so much healing to do, is when we can rest right here, right now, and receive it for ourselves, and let our minds be joined together, as they already are, and accept the remembrance of this, because as we heal our minds, we heal the world, and so it is. So I love you all. Thank you. Bye.